Now, and I'll go ahead and formally introduce my colleague, Dr. Amber Navarre, who is a senior lecturer of Chinese at Boston University and author of Technology Enhanced Teaching and Learning of Chinese as a Foreign Language. I hope it's okay to call you Amber. That's what I'm used to doing. Amber holds a PhD in applied linguistics and works as a language teacher and teacher trainer specializing in second language acquisition, technology enhanced language learning, and curriculum design. And in 2018, she won the ACTFL Cengage Award for Excellence in Foreign Language Instruction Using Technology. So we're really lucky to have her here today speaking to us from experience about asynchronous language instruction. And so I won't waste any more of our time. I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you, Amber, for being here.
Sure, my pleasure. So hi, everybody. I'm Amber Navarre. So today I heard you guys are going to convert to this new model that is 3-day on-site in class in person. Well, hopefully next semester. So it's not like hectic like now. So, and 1 day asynchronous online. So I happen to, well, every teacher at Boston University happens to have this same experience, which started 3 years ago, 2019. So that's when we convert our curriculum to this 3+1 model. And I wanted to know how my colleagues, I know how I think about it. So I wanted to know how my colleagues react to it after 3 years implementing this model. So I did a quick survey. So whenever I pass a colleague in the hallway, I would ask them, okay, if we get to choose right now, do you want to come back to the 4-day in person, or do you guys want to keep the 3+1 model? And not surprisingly to me, everybody, 100%, everybody said, well, we want this 3+1 model now, because two main reasons. One is that we all see positive learning effects among students. Of course, in the beginning, the conversion takes a lot of effort. So I wouldn't try to hide that. It takes a lot of effort. But at the end, we all see positive learning effects in students' motivation. They're really excited in doing the we have Tuesday, Thursday, depending on the language, the Tuesday, Thursday asynchronous modules. And we see students like the variety of activities they can do online, and they like to have, they are college students. They want to do self-paced learning. They want to have more control over their learning. And we all see that the more readiness when they come back to class. And also to us teachers, we also enjoy the logistic benefits. One, we can get better classrooms, because before this, in order to have 4 days the same time in the same classroom, we might have to go really, really far. If you know the layout of Boston University is like a very, very long Commonwealth Avenue, and you might have to walk like 20, 30 minutes from your office to get to your classroom. And some of us enjoy the day we don't need to commute because Boston is so expensive. Like I personally, I spend 3 hours on the road every day. I have to go on campus. So I really love that on that day, I don't need, 3 hours is both ways combined. So 2 campus and back. And we like to be able to, sometimes we have chores to take care of. We also enjoy the freedom to be able to schedule some things you have to do during the office hours, the normal office hours for people. And also the preparation load actually reduces over the years, because the first year is the hardest because we have to have everything ready, right? But after the second year, you do some modification. Third year now, I pretty much only did very limited fine tunes of the activities online. So the third year is all very easy for me. So, and before you start doing it, I try to recall like the mindset when we had to go into this model in 2019. So now I have some do's and don'ts to share. Okay, so the don'ts, I'll start with don'ts. So don't simply convert that 1 day. So now you feel like you're losing 1 day in person, right? Don't just convert that 1 day's content online, because whatever you prepared to teach, to deliver in person is best delivered in person. So if you simply convert your whole lecture, whole activity online, it's not going to work the best. And also don't base the design on coverage. This is similar. So don't think, okay, that day I have to cover A, B, and C. So I'm just going to cover these points online. So that's not the best way to use the online hour. Now, do's. What do we actually want to do? In our mindset, we want to think what can be better achieved in online environment compared to in person. There are things that can be done better online than in person. So find those opportunities. That's to me, I feel that's the best, the correct mindset for that. And also think, in order to do these kind of activities, think what support students will need to achieve it. So once you have this mindset, now we can begin to think, okay, now we're using the online environment. What could be best achieved online? So there are several characteristics of online environment. First, self-paced activities is great for online environment because one example is using videos. When you're showing a video, no matter whether it's authentic or instructional videos, you show it in the class. Are you going to only show it once and hope all students get it? Or are you going to show it twice, 3 times, 4 times so that everybody can get it, but some students already get bored? So this kind of activity is best reserved for online because students can choose. They can speed up, they can slow down, they can repeat a certain section of it. And the second one, extensive reading. It's the same thing because we're not doing the intensive, the lesson text reading. We're having them read a story or something outside of the textbook. Some students will read faster. Some students will read more slowly. Some students need to look words up in the dictionary. Some students already memorized all the vocabulary, so they have an easy time. So this kind of activity, self-paced, is very good to be reserved online. Presentation, if you have students, say, talk about their family. If every student goes in the classroom, if everybody gives the 2-minute presentation in the class, I don't know how big you guys have your class. My class, the cap is 16. So if every student goes for 2 minutes, that already takes up the majority of my class hour. So I would have them do this kind of presentational talk online on the asynchronous day. Another good kind of activities you can do online is to have students connect to others. This is a little bit counterintuitive because students actually do not see each other in person on that day, right? But I found that students can have the recorded conversations. It's actually quite easy to connect them online. I'm going to show you examples soon. Okay, so they can connect with each other and record the conversations, and you can listen to their conversations later. And pen pal exchanges, I really love this one. I've been doing it for 2 years, so 4 semesters. My students have pen pal exchanges with native speakers, also college students in Taiwan. They really love it every week. So this kind of thing is easily done online. It's impossible to do in person. You can only do it online. And group projects, interestingly, group project, you usually think students have to see each other so that they work together. But I've had students, because the past 2 semesters, we were completely online. And I was teaching a class called Chinese through Theater and Performance. So students actually did theatrical projects. They did a micro movie completely in Zoom. So I'm going to show you that examples too. So there are so many things, so many different kinds of collaboration they can do online, and it's made possible and easy now. And the last type of activities to allow you to fully use the online environment is instant feedback, so that you can have exercises that are they are auto-graded exercises, so computer can just do the grading for you. You can have students play digital games, vocabulary games, some review games online. So these things are better or can only be done online instead of in person. So now we think of this variety of activities. Now we can begin to identify what your students need. We want to make that day worth it. So we want to identify our students' needs first. So I'm going to, several examples here. My class, the second year Chinese class, I identified that my students just need more communication. Speaking, writing, they just need more communicative activities in all three modes and two modalities, which means literacy and oral communication. So on this day, I specifically reserve for me it's Thursday, I reserve Thursday for communicative activities only. For my colleague, her class is first year Chinese. So she identified her students need some more practice with pronunciation because they're beginners. So she wants them to do more reading. She wants them to have more cultural input and also speaking practice. So you're going to see that her module will look different from mine. And my fourth year class is this year, it's called Chinese through TV series. I want students to develop critical thinking. So I want them to do in-depth reflection on the TV episodes they watch. And I want students to do media projects. So those two things are what they do on this +1 day. Okay, so examples, the exciting examples here. So we are, if you see how many tabs I have open on this browser, so those are the examples you're going to see. So the first module examples is the second year, my second year class, which the group that needs lots of communicative practice. So the module includes communication, one presentational speaking I had students do on Flipgrid, and also one interpersonal speaking. They respond also to respond to others' posts on Flipgrid. So let's look at it. Okay, so this one is each student talk about their favorite Chinese restaurant.
我最喜欢的中国饭馆是
Yeah, that's him talking about the Chinese restaurant. So it's 1 minute 14 seconds long. I don't have a length requirement, so they can talk however long they want, but I do have, they have to talk about, say, the location, the layout of the restaurant and their favorite dish and describe the taste of it, right? So, and then the next week, I have students respond to others. So they have to listen to their classmates' posts and choose two. I ask students to choose two that they have never visited, but after their classmates' introduction, they want to visit that restaurant. And they have to give reasons why. So here's the one student's response.
老四双听起来很好。
So it sounds good.
我没吃过
I've
猪肉
never
饺子。
had that dish.
我只吃过
Yeah, so basically that's what he said. He's giving reasons for that. So if you like this kind of activity, so you have student posts and you don't want yourself to be the only audience they have. You want to create this sense of community. So I would have students respond to each other. There are two tricks in this kind of setting. One is don't ask them to do the response and the post in the same week on the same day, because if you do it, the earliest posters will get a lot of comments, right? The later posters, they get nothing because when they post, say, 11:59 p.m., others already responded, so they wouldn't listen to their posts. So I usually have students do posts this week and response next week. The second thing is you have equal number of students doing the post and response, right? But you don't want, say, 5 students commenting on one student's post and some students' posts get no audience. You don't want that. So the way I try to avoid that is to have every student respond to 2 posts. So in my experience, that's usually enough to cover every poster. So everybody gets some response. And of course, I myself also respond. But for my response, because I'm the teacher's response is a little bit different. So I have the kind of, I will respond, say, I also like this restaurant if I happen to be there. So it's a personal response and also the teacher's corrective feedback as well. Okay, so that's the first set of activities. Okay, so presentational, interpersonal for response. And then we do 2 to 3 interpretive listening. So I would have authentic videos that they're just short video clips that contains some sort of functions or structures or phrases, words that we have covered in class that week. So I'm going to show you one example, not this one, where's that one? Here. Okay, so that week we taught a phrase, 受不了 means you can't stand something, right? So I have students look at this short video clip. Yeah, so this is just a Chinese 44-second Chinese talk show.
我受不了了，我实在受不了了。
怎么了，儿子？
哎呦，
啊，
爸，爷爷他，
爷怎么？
So it's just a short joke. So for the task, I have students, I ask, okay, what are the two performers relationship in this scene, right? And then one Chinese sentence, what can that kid stand? What can he not stand? So that uses the specific phrase we just covered. And at the end, what is the joke? Did they get the joke in the talk show? Okay, so for this kind of exercise, they might get it, they might not get, especially if it's a little bit cultural and it is a joke, right? So for this kind of activity, actually, I'm going to talk about it in a second. One recommendation is to be more encouraging in terms of your grading for this day, if your goal is to get them to communicate. Okay. So, and then the last thing that day, so I have all these things just for one day. Okay, last activities is integrated, it's both reading and writing because it's a pen pal letter exchange with native speakers, which means they have to read their pen pals letters before they can respond. So that one is here. Okay, so we just use Google Drive. Right, so we have two folders here. This is Boston University and this is Taipei University of Business. So that's the university we have this pen pal exchange activity with. So you treat this as their mailbox. So if they want to give us our students letters, they come to our mailbox and just find the person and give it to them. So let's look at one example. Okay, so this is one semester's worth of communication. So remember, this is just on the receiving side. When they write to their pen pal, it goes to their pen pal's mailbox. So this one is just how many these students has received through the semester, which is a lot. So there's many letters because they actually do 2 every week because one in Chinese, one in English. Those are students learning English, so they help each other. So it could be really long and have really elaborated content in there, including text and pictures. They were talking about the movie they love, that kind of thing. Yeah, Avengers Endgame is the topic of this letter. So this is what my students really love. Most students, well, some students, you always have the students who only write 2 lines every time, but you also have students, most students, they really try to write a whole lot in this activity. So this is what I do with my classes. Okay, and then another example is what my colleague does with the first year students. So as we just learned that in the slide, we identify students' need. Her students' needs are various skills. So the first one is pronunciation, right? So let's look at the pronunciation. So it could be like this activity. This is self-graded. It is a website. So you just listen to this, click and listen to it and submit the tones. So Chinese 4 tones. So submit the number. And once you submit, it will check for you. So of course, I got it wrong because I didn't enter anything. So this is self-checking. For students, if you want to check their record, you have students do a screenshot when they are done. And you can see like when I did this, I asked students who got it 100% right. They have to be correct because they can redo it. They can just resubmit. Okay, so this is for pronunciation. And then they also want to do culture knowledge. So the culture knowledge, I believe it's this one. Wait, this is I forgot. This is another type of pronunciation activity. So students record. This is easy recording. They just click on it and they record. You listen to their recording. You can provide feedback right here. So I just highlight students, they got this pronunciation wrong, right? If I feel they need to hear my demonstration, I would just record one demonstration also right on this page. So this is for speaking practice if your students also need pronunciation. So cultural knowledge. Cultural knowledge is like, for instance, I have students watch this video introducing the cousin system in Chinese. Chinese family has very different titles, many more titles than English. So this one introduces cousins. And after they hear it, they're going to fill out the blank. It's easily graded by the computer. So it's dad's side, mom's side, they have these siblings and their children. How would I address them? So this is for cultural kind of activity. Extensive reading. There are a lot of leveled reading websites available if you look. So this is one of them. So they have storybooks. So this one is Where is China? So they have the text, they have pictures. It looks enticing and it is short and repeated structure. Where is China? Is China in this continent? No, it's not. It's in a different continent, etc. And some of them even have activities, the text built in. So they look at the pictures. You can have students retell the story. And some have vocabulary list and also the character version of it, etc. And when they are done, oops, I already clicked. Oops, I should go back. I don't think I can go back. So when you're done with, it's a whole series of same author, whole series of books. And when you are done, you can finish books. And from the teacher's end, you can see students have done reading this book. You can, if you want to further make sure they learn things in there, you can also give them tests like comprehension questions or ask them to write down things they have learned. Okay, and the last thing is students needs to practice speaking, so you have recorded conversation. And one example would be this one. So it is just in Google Drive, and students connect through Zoom, or they can use their phone if they want to use their phone app doing a video call. So I believe this pair did this in Zoom.
你好，
So they greet each other,
你周末喜欢做什么？
ask about their
我周
favorite
末喜
activities
欢
on the
看电
weekend,
影和睡觉。你呢？
asking
我
her
周末
back. Yeah, so this is a recorded conversation. It lasts 1 minute and 12 seconds. So, which is pretty decent for first year students. So this is her set of module. I use some of my students' activities because I also sometimes teach first year. So, but anyways, so that's how the overview of this module. Higher level. So this is a fourth year level Chinese TV series. This one, they only have one activity because they need to watch a full TV episode, which already takes up 45 minutes, right? And then they will reflect on it. We did it on a course block. So they do block setting because I want them to also be able to see each other's writing. Okay, so the TV show is 40 episodes, the whole series, 40 episodes. However, the semester, we don't have that many weeks. We have 13 weeks, I believe, if you take out Thanksgiving and the final. So 13 weeks. So we sometimes skip several episodes. So I would put the important intro of the content of the 2 episodes we skip here. And here's the link to the 25th episode. So I asked them to watch this one. And this one is especially about a kid who has an introverted kid who would hide everything in her mind. She wouldn't communicate those things to her parents. So I asked them to imagine they were this kid and on her behalf, write a 500-character diary entry to talk about what happened recently. So based on the content of this episode and what she thinks about what happened to her. So like each student would have their writing, and I also post personal response and also linguistic suggestions. So this is what the only thing they do on Thursday is watch TV and have a reflection on it. Okay, so we just looked at the modules, right? If anyone has any question anytime, you can just type in chat. So every once in a while, we can check and just make sure. Anyone has questions so far about the modules themselves? If not, we can move on the types of tasks. Yes, Adrian.
Tom's raising his hand.
Yeah, it's not so much about the module itself, but I'll ask it now, just about the levels. I'm wondering, how many contact hours do you have in 4th year Chinese? Or, I mean, is it how many credit hour class? Would it normally be 3 contact hours and you've reduced it to 2? Or would it normally be 4 or 5? How does that work?
No, so all of our language courses are 4 credit.
Okay.
But the first 2 years we have, that's first 2 years, we have 4 days contact hours, just 4 contact hours, right? One hour every day. But 3rd and 4th years, the higher level courses, we are only required to meet 3 days. Even before this new model, we were required to meet 3 days. However, we have always, even before this, we always develop this informal online hours for them to do on Tuesday and Thursday. So I would say the actual contact hours is still 4. Even though in the system it's a 3-day class, because we kind of give those things as assignments.
So are the 1st and 2nd year now also 3 hours of contact plus the asynchronous, or do you do 4 contact hours plus asynchronous?
No, we do 3 plus 1.
3. Okay, so it's 3 plus 1 across the board then in all 4 years now.
Yes.
I see. Okay, thank you.
It's just for first 2 years, it's done formally. So on the university schedule, they see 4 days. But the higher levels on the university schedule, they see 3 days. However, they still have to do these things outside of the class. So it's pretty much the same.
So they see 4 days on the schedule for the lower levels. So
yes.
Does that, but is the 4th day a specific time? Is it?
No, it's asynchronous.
So it doesn't, so they can sign up for another class on that day.
They can, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, do we have other questions? Somehow I cannot see hands because I don't.
I'll go ahead and call on people. Allison,
okay,
your
great.
hand was next.
Yes, thank you for that marvelous walkthrough of some of the activities. I do have a question. One of the things you led with the advantage for this way of teaching with the plus one was that students could really pursue their own interests. And I was wondering if you will say more about that, or if you could say more, that how can you, in a sense, create pathways for students to develop whatever they're interested in without a kind of class assignment where everyone is doing similar things?
So I didn't specifically say different interests. I think I have in that slide, students are more motivated. So we haven't seen much of that, but soon when we talk about tests, when we are at student projects, they have more choices in there. And also you see a little bit in the pen pal exchange activities because they choose what they write about. There's no guidelines for that at all. My only thing is you write 2 letters, 1 Chinese, 1 English, 2 different pen pals. So that's all. So they talk. If you look at their mailbox, I really love sometimes going in and just see what they talk about. You know a lot about their personal life just from what they choose to say to their pen pals.
Thank you.
Okay, and please, people, mind that this is not the end of, of this hour's presentation. I have more things. So specifically, if you have questions about the modules, you can ask now, or otherwise you might be able to wait a little bit after we talk about more types of tests.
I'll go ahead and let you continue now, Amber, and we'll pick up the next questions in a few moments.
Okay, so you've already seen several examples of tests, right? So I divide the tests into 3 types. So it's easier for you to conceptualize what kind of test you actually want to put students to do. So the first type is, we saw a lot are communicative activities, right? So for interpretive listening, you have students watch or listen to authentic videos or audios. It could be clips, it could be full episodes. You could have students listen to podcasts. I found podcasts is actually a good source of listening materials nowadays. And I'm not sure about some languages have more, some languages have less. They are more and more, at least in Chinese recently. I think that's because of the COVID. The past 2 years, there are more and more podcast content that you can find. Interpretive reading, we already talked about the leveled reading, and social reading is another activity I really like for my students to do online. So I'm going to show you an example of social reading. So this one is also from the 4th year Chinese through TV series class. So in addition to watch the episode, I specifically picked one TV show that is based on novels. So they also read the original novels and they can like pick on the difference between the novel and the adaptation the director decided to make in the TV series. So social reading means that, so this is a pretty long, they read a lot for this 1 week, 1 day, right? And they comment on the content. So they can talk about how they think about a specific content. And this one, the beautiful thing is, if you see this whole box here, this is one student making the original comment about this content. And there are students responding to her. I didn't ask them, they are free to respond to others or give their own comments, but they choose to respond to each other. So there are 4 more if I open the. So this whole box is students talking to each other about this person's comment. I agree about this, or I don't agree about it. I have a by the way kind of comment to it. So this allows them with their reading. So reading is sometimes a very lonely activity, right? But by doing this, they choose to respond to each other, talk to each other. There's this conversation. It allows them to use more the target language. And 2, it also gives them a sense of community. So even though they're not in the classroom seeing each other in face, they still feel they're in the same class, they're in the same mental space with each other. And another advantage is that sometimes they ask the meaning. So there's word or sentence, they don't know the meaning. I don't even need to address it. Someone else, because it's a higher level, they already possess different sets of knowledge of this language. They already explain it to each other. So I don't even need to address that myself. So it saves time and it's a very good activity before we talk about this text in class. They already read it and they already talked about it. Okay, so that's interpretive reading. We have presentational speaking. You already saw the video post in Flipgrid. Audio recording, if students are shy about showing their face, they can always do audio recording. Nowadays, you can do that in Flipgrid as well. Presentational writing, as you saw it's a reflection activity of the TV episode. Or you can simply assign students some topic to write about. I want you to write about your hobbies this week. So you can do topic writing. Interpersonal speaking, you have them do the recorded conversation. You can have them do video response to each other. For interpersonal writing, the pen-pal exchange, if you cannot find native speakers. So when I started, I was lucky I found someone, another instructor in Taiwan who wants to work with me, right? If you don't have this luxury, you can have, if I teach 2 classes in the same level, I would have them just write to each other. Or even within the same class, you can have them write to each other. Okay, so for this type of activity, so your goal is to get students to communicate to each other, right? What discourages communication the most? Grading and correction, right? So when I do this kind of, because if they feel, well, the more I write, the more errors I'm going to make, they will not want to write a lot, right? So for this kind of activity, so first of all, you want to create a purpose, like writing a letter to a pen pal. You create an audience, like when they record a post, video post, the teacher is not the only person who's going to see it. When they record, they already know there will be other classmates listen to my recorded message and respond to me. So you create an audience for them. And before they do that, especially the first once or twice, you want to give them examples or model it. If I want them to introduce their room, I will show them models of me or someone else introduce their room. And be encouraging. This is actually the most important thing, if you ask me. For this kind of activity, I grade for completion. So as long as they do it, they get a 4 point. It's just 1 day's assignment, so it doesn't hurt. I feel fine just giving them the completion grade, 10 out of 10. So I don't grade their performance because I want them to speak more, write more. And I only do selective correction. I don't circle out every error they make in their letters, or I don't point out every error they make in their recorded video posts. I only point out for each recorded post, I point out 1 to 2 things I think this students really need to know. So I don't go any more than that. And if they make progress, make sure you notice. Sometimes it's just a passing comment when I see them say they come 5 minutes earlier in one of the class. I would say, hey, so-and-so, I noticed that you're writing more in your letters, and that's great. Kudos, great. So just note their progress. If you notice anything, just don't be shy to just tell them. Okay, so that was the first type. The second type is the self-learning activities. Some of them we have already seen, the pronunciation exercise, the auto-checked website, the recording practice. And if you want to do reading tests, the extensive reading, social reading, or you saw that pre-reading is another thing I want to show an example. Pre-reading means I'm going to teach this piece of text in class, but I want them to read it before I even talk about the content. So a pre-reading example, let me see, where is that? Nope, it's not this. I might not have it open, which will be That okay. So pre-readings. So basically, I just have comprehension questions. I ask students to read a certain set of certain section of the text that we're going to cover in class, and they read it. I have basic comprehension questions that they have to answer so that I know they've read it and they understood the gist of the text. So that's a pre-reading text. Okay, and sometimes you can have students do self-learning instructional videos. So this is what we often use in flipped learning. So you have students learn some concept, structure, grammar, vocabulary, or the dialogue of a conversation. So here's an example of the lesson dialogue. So your goal is to have them come to class next day ready. So this is one of them. So this is a lesson dialogue.
白啊，你周末喜欢做什么？
我喜欢打球、看电视，你呢？
So this is the kind of embedded questions in the video. So you have some comprehension checks just embedded in this activity. And as a student, as a teacher, if you use this kind of app, you get a report to see how many students have completed this and the accuracy rate in each question. Okay, so the instructional videos. Another example I have here is an instructional video, which will be this one. So on this page, I have a link to the YouTube video that's to teach you how to describe your house or apartment. And then I have a quick check exercise below it. So I asked them to describe this apartment using what they just learned and just easy 3 questions to make sure they watch the video and they get it. Okay, so that's for instructional video. Hey, now I see a question in chat. Adrian, is that something? Okay, do you assign a specific time and day to complete one activity? No, I don't. So it's just as long as they finish it before midnight that day. Some students, college students, a lot of them have work or they schedule classes for that day for the conflicted hours. So I always just tell them finish it by midnight. And I'm very flexible. If that day we have Pronto, which is the similar to Slack, the text messaging within the group. So if they send me a text message saying that they are behind the hours and they need more hours or they need to finish the next day, I usually just let them. I always say yes, because my goal is just to get them to do it. I don't want it to be a stress item in their life. Okay, so instructional videos. And you can play review games. So you want to review vocabulary, review grammar, but you don't want it to be too boring. So you can play a review game like this example. This is just a vocabulary review game. This kind of game I do at the end of every chapter. So you can say, let me enter my name, Amber, in there. And you're going to see a train coming in soon. And you're going to pop the balloon so that they fall to the correct car. Okay, to worry. All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, and the thing gets faster along the way. Yeah, so you get certain number of scores. So anyways, that's the way to do it. And it will go through the vocabulary of the lesson. And at the end, there's leaderboard you can choose to display. So you see how many students who has completed it and who did it faster than others. So they also feel great about themselves if they see themselves on the top 3 or top 5. So there are a lot of game apps that you can use for this kind of activity. Okay, So review games is another option for you. Here are some tips if you choose for students to do self-learning. If they do self-learning, always check to ensure they learned, they watched the video, they did the activity, and they can demonstrate that they have learned it. And then what I always do is check in with individual students. There will be students who would miss work, or who always make the same mistakes, or who always skip a certain kind of test. I always just approach them after the next day's class, say, hey, I noticed this, is everything okay? And also you can address common errors in class. So if you see a lot of students didn't get to this grammar point, you try to have them learn in this asynchronous hour, you can come back and address it with them. Okay, so the third type is students can do projects together with each other, and usually this kind of work usually lasts over several weeks. So several examples, you can have them do a skit or a micro movie. You can have them record a podcast together. You can have them do digital storytelling. It could be a video format or a storybook, and you can have them do, report. So they research on a problem, a question, something they want to know. They can go out to hand out survey, do questionnaire with others, and they can interview others. So here are several examples. So the first one I'd like to show is, this is my Chinese to theater class. So here's how they did it, the theatrical production in Zoom environment. So I only select some clips in there to demonstrate how they did it. So that's about this project. So this is the beginning scene. They use stock video. Nowadays, you can find free and royalty-free stock videos and audios online. So this is all copyright-free. They didn't go to China and film this one. They just found it. That's a beginning shot. Also a stock video. Okay, and the scene one, they're at the hospital. So they use a split background. Really geniusly when you see it. See how they did it?
检查呢？以前有任何症状吗？
没有啊。
So they just pretend this happens in the same room when they are just in their own house. And this is fun. They even talk to the person on the bed, which is just a background picture. So in real life, they just talk to the air. So I'll skip some and send us to so they decide to steal something to get the money she needs for her mother's illness. So they broke in someone's house like this.
你快过来看看，这人怎么了？在地上一点动静都没有。
It's so seamless that I could hardly, you just really feel they are in the same room. And at the end, there's a twist in the movie that I'm not going to talk about. At the end, they found that this whole thing is just a setup. So they are recorded and observed by someone in the lab. Yeah, so that's basically the project. So many things that can be done even what you could not imagine in the past now can be done in just a simple Zoom setting. So that's one possibility. You can have students do podcasts. You can have students do digital storytelling. So I'm going to show you an example of digital storytelling between two students. So they made this story. The task is, the project topic is, they have to come up with, when I wake up today, I found I have become. Okay, so this group, they choose, so they can make their choices here. They choose to talk about their life after they become a miniature, like 3-inch person, so a very small person. So this is how they become.
这是我怎么变成缩小人的经过。我是大人的时候，我是一个科学大学生。我的学校实验室大楼离大马路很远，因为我
So it's a 2-people project. And they can also choose to do it as a storybook. So this one is when they wake up, they found they become a bird. So for the storybook, it looks like this. You open the book and you go to the next page. So they become a bird, and this is a text story, and the bird begin to fly into different places and thinking, gradually realizing, now I am a bird, right? And what can I eat? Some life situations. It is a tragedy actually, because they, at the end, there's a hint that the bird got eaten by an even bigger bird. So it's a very like dark humor. So this is another thing students can do as a project completely done online. Okay. And a report. So you have students, send students out to do survey, questionnaire, interview, and they can come up with something like this. This is a higher level course, so it's a long research report. This one is about the international students from China, how they conceptualize the purchase of luxury goods. So they went out to do, the first step is they have to do survey on their own. So I think they collected 42 survey results from people, all in Chinese, and they write the analysis in Chinese with the charts. So they, at the end, they found out the answer to the problems they try to find out more about. Okay, so those are the 3 types of projects. For wait, I forgot. The tips for a project is you want to have clear goals and work distributions for every week. You don't want to say, in 5 weeks, I want to see this final product. That usually doesn't work very well. You want to make sure every week they have specific stage. There's a specific stage of this project they want to complete. And I'm going to show you an example in a second. And you want to check their progress after each week, after each session. And you want to provide feedback during the process, not at the end of the product. Once it's done, you have already lost the opportunity to kind of either to help them to do better in this project. So you see the project-based learning as a whole process. So you provide feedback during it. So for instance, this is when they did the digital storytelling. So the week 1, they're forming and organizing ideas. I usually have them do either a story timeline or a mind map like this. Okay, so they think they become this miniature person and what happened. So just get ideas. Second week, they begin to write up, and then between weeks, between first and second week, I look at this mind map and give them some feedback, and then they write up the story, and then I give them feedback between these 2 weeks, and they revise, and then I give them the final feedback, and then they can find media, the pictures they want to use, the music they want to use in this week, and at the end they do the recording and editing the last week. So it's a 5-week project. Okay, so those are the different types of tests. Are there questions before we move on to this last reminder?
Psycho, do you want to ask your question now?
Oh, my question was answered by Megwen. So since my objective is not to share about specific tools, there are so many tools can do this kind of things. If you want to know about specific kind of tools, you can ask Adrian.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yeah.
Hi, Amber. So thank you very much for this wonderful talk. I think the idea of integrating the three modes based on actual standard, interpersonal, interpretive, and presentational modes into a curriculum design is really wonderful, and it serves as an overarching guideline to our curriculum design. So I really like that. And I noticed that in your second year Chinese class, you included a lot of different technological tools in terms such as Flipgrid, and you have your school course management site, and you have the writing journals on some different platforms. My question is, do you have such routines every week, like the students use the same technological tools every week? Because my concern is that to include too many technological tools might overwhelm our students. Especially in my previous experience, usually I thought that students are very tech savvy, but
they are not.
Yeah, it turned out that they're not. So my question is, do you have such routines, and what's your suggestions for how many tools you want to include in your curriculum design, things like that? Thank you.
Yes, I do. I actually include in this slide you are going to see. So just hold on to that question. Just wait a little bit. I have something to say about it on this slide. Anything else before we move on, though?
Nina.
Thank you. So I also typed it in chat. So basically a question for me is, do you allow students to read their drafts when recording their story videos, or they need to memorize every line?
It depends. For this one, for digital storytelling, they are allowed to read aloud. That is okay. But if it's a presentation, then no.
Okay,
so it depends on what you have them do.
So do they do their presentation in person or also online?
Well, so far, if it's a topic presentation, they do it in class. But if it's just, when we say presentation, it could be a serious presentation or just a presentational test, right? If it's just a presentational test, it will be like what we just saw on Flipgrid. So they talk about a topic, right? They had time to prepare. They prepare on their own. And you can see some students just talk, right? Some students like to write a script. So when it is online, I just have, because I want them to talk more, I just have them do whatever they want to do.
Okay.
But if it's an in-class topic presentations, like they present on, I don't know, certain topic of Chinese culture, then it has to be, they just come and talk.
Right. Yeah, they can't. So for in person, they're not allowed to read anything. Okay.
That's what I do anyways.
Okay. But for online setting, I find it's very hard to control them or to.
Right. So don't just don't
okay.
control them. There's one thing I would, if I find that they use Google Translation, that usually result is very obvious. So we all know that, right? They talk beyond their current level and they use funny, sometimes super formal structures when they're speaking. That usually means they get the help from Google Translation. And sometimes they don't do it to cheat. They do it because they want to do well, right? So usually in this case, I would approach that individual students, say, okay, I noticed you did that. That is not wrong. I appreciate that you want to do really well in this task. However, since this task is graded by completion, I don't mind if you make errors, but I want you to try to maximize your use of the language you have already learned. That will be the purpose of this task. So to help you to rest your mind, you are allowed to look up words, but I want you to limit to 3 for each task. So they can still, if they want to look up words, that's fine. Sometimes it's necessary if they just don't know how to say air conditioner, but they are dying to say air conditioner. in their
Yes.
speech for some reason, I would say, it's limited to 3.
Thank you for the suggestion. I find it's very tricky to find that balance.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All
Thank you.
right.
I'm
So
going to interrupt momentarily and just let those who don't know, there are a couple people here that we actually have Amber until 5 p.m. So if you need to leave, go ahead. We're recording the session. You can revisit later, but we'll just go ahead and let Amber continue since we've got a lot of time still.
okay. So I have different activities for the next hour. So I'm going to right now share my take-home message. Okay, so in general, we want the +1 day to do several things. The first one, we wanted to address students' needs. That's what we have been talking about, right? And 2, it shows 2 and 3 simultaneously. So anyways, 2, we want that day to be different. This is very important. We want it to be different from our regular assignments. Like in my class, we have daily online assignments, but Thursday is a different day. It helps them for 2 basic advantages. One is that on Thursday, you want them to feel they are refreshed. They're doing something different from their day-to-day, everyday assignments, everyday class. So it helps with their motivation. And 2, if you do the same activities as your everyday assignment, just longer, because we want to use it to replace that contact hour, right? It would just be longer than normal assignments. They would feel, oh, today I just have more homework. So it's mentally discouraging for them. So I usually have the boundary. So our daily homework, we're doing this. And on Thursday, you just do communication. Okay, so the third thing is we want to make sure that we have set up and follow up in class. So the day before they do the online, you want to have the setup. For instance, if you want to have students do recorded conversation, pair them up when they are still in the classroom so that they get each other's contact and they schedule a time. Tomorrow we're going to do it. And you also have follow up in the class. So if you see the day before, many people, they make the same mistake, you can address it in class. If you do have students do a multiple week project, you want to follow up as to how they did in this stage of their project. You want this plus day to reflect a reasonable workload. Some people ask this question, right? A reasonable workload. So as you saw in the modules, if it's an individual, like smaller tasks, you can have 3 to 5. But if you have students watch a full TV episode, then reasonably you only have them do 1 activity that day. So make sure it reflects a reasonable workload. And the last thing is you want this because they use technology, you want it to be easy to explore. And there are several ways to make sure of that. One is you want to keep all tasks in one portal, even though you use different tools and sources. For instance, you can have them watch a grammar video on YouTube, right? But you want to keep everything in one portal. In your case, you guys use Canvas, right? So you have the whole thing, the whole day's module on one page, and you can have external links in there, but students always know you go to this page, it has everything listed in one place. So once they're done with every test on this page, they are done with that day's module. And then you want to, this might be helpful for some students if you provide estimated time for each task. Sometimes it's hard to do because, for instance, for the PenPal program, it's impossible. You cannot estimate if they write a 2-liners or if they write a whole essay. So there's no way to estimate that. But for other tasks, for instance, is pronunciation, you estimate, well, this test will take 7 minutes. It also helps you to, in your mind, seeing how much time students need for each task. It's to help you to keep it within a reasonable range of workload. Last thing, keep tech learning minimum. You just saw a lot of different technology, right? But remember, they are not used in one class and they're not used by one teacher. I collect examples from different teachers. Okay, I do have a gold number for the whole semester. For the whole semester, my students use 426 technology, which includes the learning management system, the school management system, and the really easy no-brainers like Google Drive. They're all included. And for each given class, my number is 426. So you just keep reusing those and just do more with less. So I hope that answered the question about technology just now. Okay, so do we want to take a 3-minute break before we move on to the second hour activity?
Sure, yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, so guys, we're coming back at 5:00, for me, 5:08. For you guys, that would be 4:08, okay?